Today I've got a bunch of oak hardwood floorboards that I've been working with. So in previous labs, you've seen me remove the nails. The last lab, you saw me plane them down. And so now I've got a bunch of boards that look a lot like this. So you can see where I have removed the nails and I've planed down both sides. And now I need to rip the edges so that I've got a nice flat and square side, because these came as tongue and groove. And then they also have a bunch of adhesive and other gunk on them that I want to clean off. So I'm going to rip them and I'm going to cut off the edges here so that those are all nice and easy to work with. I think I'm going to start on the miter saw, cutting the edges or cutting the ends off, and then rip them, because right now they're in a big pile on the floor right there, and the table saw is right there, and I don't want to have to move them and then get out the table saw and then rip them. So instead I will cut them on the miter saw first, and then that'll clear out the space for the table saw. So we'll get the miter saw set up here, and let's see here. So got some eye protection that I'll throw on first, and got some ear protection that I'll put on. I am going to connect my shop vac with my Syntec hose setup. And on some of these I have a fair amount on the ends that didn't plane off the original finish very much. So I'm just going to chop off more on those ones so that I don't have to worry about, cleaning off the finish. And so, just a couple of inches of length there, and it shouldn't be too terrible. And on the others, I'll just cut off the very end and not have as much waste. So anyway, I'll just get to chopping these guys. So I've got the shop vac set up here, and then on my miter saw station, I still need to do some changes and updates on this, but the way this works right now, I've got my I did a recent update on this so that it's not much of an update, but just works a little bit better this way. Rather than having the miter saw centered, I've moved it over to this side, and then I've just got this little support that is pretty much the same height as my miter saw bed, and so that way it can support longer pieces a little bit better than what I had before. So it's not perfect, but it's better than the way I had it. So let's get to chopping away. And okay, it looks like we've got some people in the chat. Oh, hey, I was looking at the chat over here, but for whatever reason it was down below. I needed to scroll down to be able to see. We've got Robert G in the house. We've got Wes Does It, and yeah. What are my plans for the lumber? Ooh, that is a great question, Wes. The answer is, I don't know. It's I don't know. It's just I got it for free, and I just had it piled up on the floor over there, and it had a bunch of nails and stuff in it, and so I was like, I need to get those nails out. And then I got the nails out, and then I was like, oh, I need to plane those down. So now they're planed down, and I have a big pile of floorboards right there. So I'm like, hey, I need to get these ripped so that they're usable. And I'm just not sure what I'm going to use them on. But you know, if you guys have some ideas on what I should use it for, I'm open to suggestions. So yeah, let me know what you think. What should I use some old oak wood floorboards for? Put your suggestions in the chat, and whoever comes up with the best answer probably doesn't win anything. So, but I appreciate your participation and helping me figure out what to do. So I don't really have a straight side to rest up against here, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. So I'll just take off enough to clean off the ends and go from there. And this one, either this is a little bit lower than the bed, or the board is not completely flat, but either way, not a huge deal. So, all right, let's get the V shop back going, get the miter saw running, and looking nice and clean. Yeah, coffee table, nightstands. Yeah, true. Coffee table and nightstands. Yeah, I could do something like that. Yeah, good ideas. All right, let me get the machinery running. I've found that it's actually easier to run the miter saw when I plug it in first. All right, board is bowed. Yeah, probably. I could get out the straight edge to verify, but I'm not too worried about it. It probably is bowed. Whew. Okay. I wasn't really anticipating doing all of those at once, but here's the file we've got so far. I had a few boards that I skipped because they had some uneven finish. There's some of the original finish that's still on there, and I didn't want to cut off the whole board. See, on that one, it's got some original finish up here, and then a little bit in here and up here. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to plane those boards down a little bit more. This guy didn't get planed very well on the underside of the board. You can see it's still got some ridges there. Some fluting, I think is the term I heard. So I'm just going to plane those down more. And then this is my stack of stuff to rip. As I was doing that, I was thinking I probably should have started off with the ripping, because that way I would have had a nice flat side to put up against the miter saw fence, because on these ones, you know, a lot of them are cracked and, you know, just not flat, and so it's not the best to be putting that up against the miter saw fence, because I'm not going to get a truly square cut there. But oh well. So toward the end, I started using this side as my reference, because the tongue tended to be a little bit more intact than the groove side when they ripped everything apart. So I started just using that. So you might have seen me lining it up and then flipping it over. So actually lining it up like that so I could see where to make the cut, and then flipping it over so that the tongue side was up against the fence of the miter saw. But probably would have been better overall to just do the ripping first. All right, let me catch up on the chat here. Okay. Yeah, looking nice and clean. Okay, board is bowed, yep. Yeah, miter saw wants electricity. Herringbone glue up for the top. I'm not familiar with herringbone glue up. Am I even on screen? Can you? I might be angling the camera a little too low there, but herringbone glue up. I'm not familiar with that. So if you guys can let me know what that is. May not want to cut off the tongue and groove until you decide what you want to do. Yeah, I was thinking about that, but Wes, part of the problem with if I just retain the tongue and groove is that they have all this old adhesive on them, and so I'm not going to get a good lock on the boards, you know, and especially now that I've planed them down, you know, they're not going to fit very well. So I'm just not. It's just not going to give me a very good hold. So I figured it's not really going to do me any harm to remove those tongue and grooves so that I can get a nice, clean, flat edge. So anyway, that was my thinking on it. But yeah, I did consider just leaving the tongue and groove on there. Let's see, Robert G gonna be back. Is this where the cool people are? I don't know, Pine and Oak, maybe. You tell me. And let's see. Okay. Here we go. All right. So I am going to set up my ripping station now. And for that, I will use the table saw. And let me get my miter saw station out of the way. Disconnect it from the vacuum. And there you go. See here. Just need to clear all this excess wood out of the way, so I've got some room to work. Old wedges there. All right, go set that guy up there. I don't remember what that's from, but just throw that over there. Not going to need the cross-cut sled right now. All right. This is a 10 gauge extension cord, so powering both the table saw and the little shop vac underneath. And then I think I'll try to use my router table here as an outfeed table. And see if we can get you guys a decent view of that. All right. Let's see how high we need that to be. And that's just about right. And as I was talking about on my miter saw fence, I don't have a truly reference side here, but I think I'm willing to just use my tongue side as my reference against the table saw fence, and just go from there, and trim off my groove side, and then once that's done, come around and shave off my tongue side with all of this adhesive gunk that's remaining behind there. So see if there's any questions or concerns here. Nope. All right, then we'll just continue on. So if I start having some issues with that, then I will get out my my jointing jig. Actually, let me just get out my jointing jig now. Just hiding up here behind the bicycles. So I'm using a match fit, micro jig match fit system. So the idea here is I can fit my board on there and line it up so that the board is right in line with this edge, whatever I want cut off. Secure these guys down, and then just put my width here at the same width as this board and run it through. Obviously, I'd have to have the blade up a little bit higher to make it work for being on top of there. But that takes a lot more time because I have to put every board in there, tighten it down, run it through, remove it, and start over. And so if I can just run these through and have a pretty good reference line there, then, but it's not going to be quite right. So I wonder if I should just do it the right way first. I mean, that sucks and takes more time, but maybe I should do it that way. I think I will. Dang it. All right, here we go. So let's see. That's right there. And on these longer ones, it's a little hard to see exactly where it ought to be. And this setup would be a lot faster if I just had a little like lockdown clamp on these. And probably I should put a little bit of sandpaper on the bottom of these boards here so that they grip better. But let's see how well this works. This is basically how I did a bunch of other boards. I think the cherry boards that I ripped from original, those are on the channel somewhere if you want to see those. So and all right, so lock that in. Need to raise the blade up. Raising the blade up is also going to mean that my dust collection isn't quite as good. And that should be high enough. I'm just going to clip that off. All right, if you have any questions, let me know in the chat. And go from there. All right. And I need my hearing protection back on. I've got my eye protection on. I've got the little shop vac and cyclone separator working on dust collection here, but it's still not going to collect everything. So here we go. All right, and you can see over here it's completely flattened, but over here I didn't have it far enough over. So I'm going to reposition that. Tighten it back down. And go again. And now we have a nice reference edge. So, all right. And where to put these guys? I think I'll just set them over here. So those are the ones that already have a reference edge done. And you know what? I think it'll be easier for me to cut off the tongue side, because it'll be easier to see where that is as I'm attaching them to the board here. So I think I'm going to cut off the tongue side first. And then I'm just using these match fit deals that have the dovetail in them. So it's kind of like T-Track, but different. And I haven't waxed these or anything, so they're not moving very smoothly right now. There we go. All right, so that's in position. That's in position. But you can see how this takes a lot longer than just running them through willy-nilly. All right, rather than locking that down, it's pushing it up. So I need to do something different here. And let's see. I think. Any ideas? If I put something else in between here, that's maybe just slightly thinner than this material, that would make it so that I don't have quite as much of an angle right here. So instead of, let me take this guy off so I can tell you what I'm talking about. So instead of having it at a really steep angle here, if I have a little block that's just a little bit thinner than this material, then this will be more straight on. But since this is thinner, when I tighten it down, it'll put the pressure on here instead of on this block. And so then that'll still secure it down. So I'm thinking I might try something like that. I just need to find some material that is close in width to this guy. Let me know in the chat if you guys have any other better ideas. Let's see. Okay. All right, I'm going to take off my headphones for a second so that. All right, that looks thicker. Just find some scrap that is. Actually, the stuff that I was just cutting, these scraps should work pretty well. These should be pretty close to the same, but yeah, that's just a little bit smaller. Yeah, that should work pretty well, I think. So I'm just going to cut this guy in half. And then attach that guy to each of those. And for that, I will need my crosscut sled, because I'm definitely not going to try to cut that guy on the miter saw. All right. And my crosscut sled is made of MDF so that it can be exceedingly flat. And then I've also got my stop out of MDF, the same board. And then I'm using a match fit system there as well for to be able to move my stop back and forth. So let me get you a little bit closer so you can see what's going on there a little bit easier. And it's going to need to be a tiny bit higher. There we go. All right, ear protection back on. Alright, and give you the view back here again. So my idea again is to put these guys in here. And just move him. So I just want to attach him right there. So, and I think as long as I've got these disconnected, I'm going to put a little bit of sandpaper on each of these too. So I don't really want to glue these on because this isn't going to be the only material that I ever use on this. So I want this to be removable. So I'm just going to see if I've got a couple screws that will go through that, but not be too thick. So let's look in the spare screw section here. Those are too long. And might be something here that would work. Although most of them are not wood screws. That's a touch too long. It's sad because otherwise it could have worked so beautifully. Is that the same? Yeah, it looks like that's the same length. Not seeing much that is long enough but not too long, and preferably wood screw. Let's see if I've got any other random. Nope. It's all a particular length. Let's see. Those look like they're too long. Probably. Use the same length. Ooh, they're shorter. Ah, those could work, but just barely. So I don't really have a lot of wiggle room. And I want them to be flush with this, but really not any further in. So that might be a little tricky. Make that work. But let's see if I can do it. So let me get my let me get this guy. All right, so I need to adjust him. So that I want all right. I want the length to be just long enough. I need that to be shorter length. Not that short. All right. I want it to go basically right there. We'll lock that in. If I can keep it in place long enough to lock in the right length. Let's see if that comports with the actual screw. I think it does. All right. And then lock him in right there. All right, let's see if that works. And okay. Hey, Plywood. Yeah, smash the like button. I like that idea. All right. So I'm gonna get that nice and close to the. So here's the hole for the bolt to go through. I'm gonna get that pretty much right next to it. All right, moment of truth now. The Phillips head. See if that goes through. All right, so that is flush, and it didn't come through on the other side. So that is just about perfect. So another one over here. And another screw. And let me just get out two more. There we go. And secure that guy down. All right. So that should be able to secure that down without being too wild, without pushing this board up. Okay. And then I'll do the same thing for this one. And start with this. And go ahead and get that screw positioned. And the other, that screw positioned. And I'll go a little bit easier on it this time, so it doesn't swing around. All right, and yeah, that should, well, let's see, is that going to be, that feels like it's too wide. This one is good. This side is not. So I think I need to remove some of this guy. Some of him is too thick. Run it. Oh. Let's see. All right. Let me go in and all right, let's see what the calipers say on this part. They have 0.49 there, and there, 0.5 there, 0.52, 0.52, 0.52. So this side is thicker than this side. So I think if I just cut this off right here, cut off this part, I should be okay to use that chunk still. Because these are, my thickness on these is 0.54. Yeah, 0.54. I've got a 0.53 reading there too, but all right, so I'm just gonna take off another chunk here. Hearing protection. A little closer than I really want my hands to this blade. So I'm gonna use something else to hold it down. Alright. And see if we can reconnect things here. All right, that should work. So I'm just going to put some sandpaper on the edge of those. Let's see. All right. Okay. You just use about that much. And all right, I'm just going to spray some spray adhesive, and hopefully those stick. Okay. There we go. No, that's not flush. There we go. All right, that should work. So now I've got some spray adhesive sandpaper on there. We've got the support right there. So that should make it hold a lot tighter. Same on this guy. And then when I'm working with different size material, I can just unscrew these guys and puts some sort of block here that's just a little bit thinner than whatever material I'm working with. So I'm going to clean up this mess now. Put everything away where it belongs so I can find it the next time I want to use it. Which, who knows, might be later in this project. Okay. All right. Okay. And crap. It's still doing the same thing. Why? Why? Because I need to be doing it from, I think I need to have my block on the opposite side. Because that way it's balanced on here instead of on this side. Dang it. Stupid physics. Why can't it just do it how I want it to do it instead of how it needs to be done? All right. So that means if I'm going to use these blocks, then I need to reposition the hole and reposition these support blocks on it. So these guys need to be moved over here, and the hole needs to be moved over there. But then I'm not going to have as much reach. So I might need to use wider stock here, which is not necessarily that big of a deal because I've got lots of scrap to work with. Let me just find some of it that will work well. And I want it to be at least as thick as this stuff. I probably have more of this stuff around, but it might not be in the configuration that I need it to be. All right. All right, that should work. Yeah. Now we're talking. Let me just use some of this. And let's cut this here. Need to raise that a little bit. Okay. Move that out of the way. And Just make it about the same width as those guys. So there we go. And let me get my eye and hearing protection back on. Hey, Shoop. Thanks for joining us, man. Oh, you just finished your live? Cool. I am trying to fix my jointing jig here. And you know what? That's actually not going to work because I need to just do it this way because I don't have enough space on here to do it the other way. We'll just eyeball that. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to put these blocks on the end so that they are over there, and then put the hole through there, and that should work. All right. I'm not really worried that these have some adhesive on them from the old shipping container that I ripped these from. All right. And like I said before, I've got to get out the entire thing again. So it's a good thing that I know where to find everything. All right. That one's almost ready. All right. And I'm going to throw a little bit of adhesive on here and put some sandpaper on them. And then I think that, oh, and then I need to drill some holes through them as well. So, see where those holes need to go here. Make those flush with the end. Well, I don't really want those flush with the end because I want to make sure I've got lots of support here. So we'll just put those flush with that side. And make a hole there. And a hole there, I think. All right. For that, I need something thick enough. Let's see. Oh, how's my wife doing? Just saw your question there. She's doing pretty well. She had a little bit of a complication that I mentioned the other day, but she got let's see, I think that's not quite thicker. So that is a touch wider, I think, but I'll just give myself a little bit more leeway and go a 1/4 inch, I think, just to be sure. So I'll just take these over here and grab my drill. And some scrap that I can drill into and give you all a fun look. So right there. Whoa, that's not in straight. There we go. All right. This doesn't have to be exact because I just need it to be able to go through. So on that first one, it was a little wonky. But as long as it can fit through, we should be fine. Yep. Okay, and then let me get some spray adhesive and some sandpaper on these guys. Here's my scissors. right. And of course, I sprayed some of the spray adhesive on there that I don't want sticking. And let's see, how's my wife? Wife wants to know. Okay, she might not have heard the other night. Okay. Oh, is my Wi-Fi cut off? Is that what you're saying? Let me see if my camera's still connected here. Still showing as working okay, but who knows? Okay. All right, so that feels like it's not going to stick, and neither is that. And the sandpaper feels like it is sticking now. Oh, I need to there's somewhere for it to go through the sandpaper there. All right. Connect that guy. Connect that guy. And let's see if the physics works on this. Get these ones out of the way. Get this stuff out of the way. All right. So I'm going to move that over so that it's flush with this side. That does not feel like it's moving. That might actually work, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so take the crosscut sled off again. Hopefully we're done with that for today. I need to get my table saw repositioned, fence repositioned so that it's same width as this sled. Ah, crap. These guys are now a little bit too wide. So I need to shave a little bit off of these, which means that I'm not done with my crosscut sled yet. Because I put these holes too far over this way. So I need to shave off a little bit more on those. All right. All right, so if I just take one blade's width, that should be plenty. And I'll put in the stop block for more control and make it repeatable. And I'll move you closer up so you can see the action a little bit better. There we go. Started getting a little worried that I was too close to, started getting a little too worried that I was way too close to the edge there, but looks like it'll work. We'll see. All right. So I don't know how well you can tell, but I've got a little bit of a gap now on either of those. I just need to make sure that I don't have it at an angle like that when I position it, because otherwise it will interfere with the fence. So, all right, take 7, whatever we're going on now. Let's see. There we go. All right, that's pretty much in position. All right, and I think I'm going to leave the blade pretty high so I can just shave off this part too so that it's more in line with this. So then I've got a decent reference on just how wide this is going to cut. All right. Now that I've got that done, let me get back to chat and address some of the questions there. So, all right, about my wife. Yes, she is doing all right. She had her transplant just over 2 weeks ago. She got released from the hospital earlier this week on Tuesday. And then, or this past week on Tuesday. And then, but they realized right around the time that she was getting released, that she had a bit of an issue, being that her, all right, that should work. But is that, we'll lower it a little bit. That's good. All right, let's reposition everything over here. Let's actually get you closer to the action if possible. There we go. Might bump a little bit as we're going, but it should be decent, I think. So, yeah, so she got her transplant. As she was getting released, they realized that she had a lot of fluid that was accumulating around the kidney. And it's a lymphatic fluid that's actually pretty common in kidney transplant patients. According to Copilot, it happens in about 26% of kidney transplant patients. So not an uncommon occurrence, but I think hers was a little bit more severe maybe than most. They went in and drained her, but then it filled back up. And so on Friday, they went in over the same incision, which was lengthy, right? It was probably about 10 inches long. Reopened that incision, drained out another 500 mLs of the lymphatic fluid that had accumulated. And then they did what they call a marsupialization procedure. No, she's not a kangaroo, although maybe. And basically what that does is it, according to my co-piloting, right, not Googling, but co-piloting, it kind of creates a pathway for that lymphatic fluid to go from where it's being secreted into the abdominal cavity into a different part of the abdominal cavity where it can be reabsorbed easily, so that it's not accumulating, it's just moving from one spot to another, getting reabsorbed instead of pooling up and potentially causing problems. So she had that procedure done on Friday. They closed her back up. She was actually much more pleased with the scar, after the second procedure than she was after the first procedure. She says it looks a lot better now. So anyway, she's doing well. I talked with her a little bit ago, and she's feeling pretty good. Maybe able to get released again tomorrow, and so we'll be happy to have her back out. She's got her friend hanging out with her. Her sister from New York just went home yesterday. She'd been with her for the previous week. She's got a friend there this week, and then she's got another sister from Arizona that's going to be with her starting next week, and she'll be there for a few weeks. So, but in all, she needs to stay in Indiana for 2 to 3 months after the transplant. So that's kind of her status. Let's see. Okay. So, all right, I'm going to get moving here. All right, let's see. I think I've got this positioned where I need to. That's a little bit tighter than what it was already, but it'll be fine. I'll just shave a little bit more off of here and cut these guys off and move forward. So here we go. And actually, let me find, just be a little bit, let me lock in the fence so it's not moving around on me. There we go. All right. All right, long time coming, but I think this jig has served its purpose because that is a nice jointed edge. So that should work well. So I will put that in the jointed pile over here with the one other one that we've completed so far. And set up the next one. All right, see how that goes. So I think I messed that up in a couple different ways. I think the jointed edge should probably be mostly fine, but number one, I didn't lower the blade, so it was still way too high. So I'm going to lower that now while I'm thinking about it. So it's just high enough to cut this material. Okay. But then because I was worrying so much about that, I wasn't keeping this guy as tight there as I should have. So I think I've got a little bit of movement. I think this guy was pointed out a little bit as I went through. So I'm actually going to take off a little bit more. I'm just going to bring my fence in a shade. All right. And this should work. Got a little bit of a crack or something in this board, but should be all right. All right, on to the next. This will let me adjust. There we go. I'm going to bring this support more toward the end over here. All right, I'm a little bit concerned about not having, yeah. So I don't have, this isn't long enough to give me a reference on that. So I think I'm going to actually move this guy down so that he's more in the middle. There we go. All right. And good. Don't feel like I did a very good job on that one of keeping the board against the fence again. So, yeah. So, see all that wiggle room? So either I need to use a longer board, or probably I just need to cut shorter boards so that they're closer to the length of this one. Okay. Hey, Big Max. Thanks for joining us, man. Prayers for a strong recovery for my wife. Thank you very much, Heidi. Appreciate it. What up, brother? Big Max. Un gusto verle. Let's see. Shoop. Glad you're not the only one in the shop. Yeah. Yeah, Shoop was live earlier in the shop. I didn't realize that before I went live. Turning a cherry bowl. I got some cherry, but I haven't turned it. Big Max is doing some electrical and some changes to the shop, so been busy. And did that the other night. Made a short of it. You made a short of the electrical, or you made a short of the electrical? Could be a couple different things there. All right. I think I'm going to try this one more time. Let's see if I can keep it tight. Let me think if I need to do anything different than what I'm... Obviously, I need to do something different because I screwed it up. But let me just think if what I'm thinking to do differently will actually work. So first off, I'm going to bring it in a touch. lock it down. And let's give it a rip. So I think that worked, but probably best just not to run such long boards on this board. So I should keep to stuff that's more similar to the length of the jig. So that's going to rule out a lot of the boards that I have here to cut. Okay. Let's do this. All right, let's see how well this does. Seems like it worked pretty well. I think what I'm seeing, what's kind of throwing me, is a little bit of a gap as I get closer and closer to here. But I think that's on purpose. I think I actually towed this out a little bit so that the distance from the blade to the fence back here is a little bit wider than the gap from the blade to the fence up here. So I don't think I'm going to worry about that as much going forward. That looks fine to me. looks good. Let me actually give you a view from this other side. That might be a little bit better. Let's scoot this guy over a little bit. There we go. And what do you think? Is that a better view for you guys? Got a little bit of burning on that one. So now I'm cognizant of all these boards being maybe a little too long for this jig. See, Shoop, I think you were telling me yesterday that you would recommend cutting those down so that they're all, shorter, easier to work with. And maybe I should do that so that I don't have to worry about this. All right. Looks like a little bit of burning in there, but in here. Otherwise, pretty good. Right. Yeah, that tongue is not in good shape. That should work. All right. See. Oh yeah, thanks for adding link there for Big Mex. And Shoop, if you haven't put your link in yet, please do. Everybody check out Big Mex and Shoop Workhouse. Their workshop. They have some pretty cool stuff on there. And yeah, electrical short. Yep, short about rearranging and adding more sockets and lights. You know what? I did a I recorded a video of me putting in these lights up here, and you know it's not a great job, but it added way more light to the shop here. And whoa, you can see, you know, just we used to just have that one light bulb right there, and then I added, you know, all of those LEDs, and it's way brighter in here, right? And so I recorded the video, and the big reveal was that the big reveal was I had my camera set showing how bright it was before the lights, and then how bright it was after the lights. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be so good. And I went into the video editing, and it was basically indiscernible how much more light there was after the improvement. And I was like, that's crazy, because it's so much easier to see. I mean, it's just so obvious in person, but on the video, it just didn't come through. It's like, that is so messed up. So I didn't end up actually publishing anything on that. Let's see, and then Shoop, let's see, you've got your subscriber giveaway that you're doing. So anyone who subscribes to Shoop's workshop, they've got a giveaway coming up. So make sure you subscribe and comment on one of their videos to be eligible for that. 48-inch lights. Yeah, I think these are also 48-inch. I've actually got one more 48-inch light to put up somewhere, and I think I might just put it up pretty close to those ones. But and 2 lamps. Yep, needed more lights. And ran some more 110 and 220 for your new toy you have coming. Oh, what's the new toy, Big Max? Pray tell, pray tell. Sounds exciting. But, you know, I think this is going to be my last board for the night, because I did not get this jig working nearly as quickly as I wanted to. I was hoping to get all of this ripped down, both sides, and I've only ripped, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boards on one side. So I'll have to continue this another night. But so I've got, I want to go play some basketball in the morning. So I'm going to need to actually go to sleep at some point. For those of you who know me, you might be like, what? He sleeps? But yeah, sometimes I do. So I'll run this one through and then call it a night. But I just want to thank everyone for joining me. And then if you haven't liked or subscribed or whatever, make sure you get that done now. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, go ahead and throw them in the chat, and I will address them once I get done running this one through. And get my hearing protection back on. And get this cleaned up. That should work. All right, so haven't accomplished nearly as much as I wanted to. So instead of having all of that ripped on both sides, instead I only have that much ripped on one side. So, yeah. And I've got a big mess to clean up. So that's always nice. Let's see. Let me start getting some of the mess cleaned up. That way you guys have some more time to put whatever questions, concerns, jokes, comments, chats, whatever, into the little message thingy. I'll start getting this stuff put away. And see, now that I've got this stuff in the way, it's harder to put away the tools up here. Not impossible, a little bit more difficult. And punch, the spray adhesive. The drill back on that guy. Throw this guy away. Because that's the one that I was using to clean up the spray adhesive. Put my sanding bin back under here. Belt sanding there. Guess I could put my bandsaw fence back on the bandsaw. Moved that so I could work on a little project late last night when I should have been sleeping. I didn't do that live though. That was just a little project I was doing for the kids in the primary class that, the Sunday school class that I teach at the church for the 9 and 10-year-old kids. All right, so take off the hearing and ear protection. Check out my chat. Yes, it is. Have to install a solar light on the outside to be able to see in the dark. Okay. I hate to have to break this to you, Shoot, but solar lights only work when there's solar power. So hopefully you've got some battery system in place there so you can capture the solar power and then, use that solar power later in the dark. Maybe I'm just missing the joke. All right. Sometimes we need sleep. 2000 lumen 3-way light. Nice. You'll wake up till 10 in the morning at least. So light, use a lot of, so stay on all night. Next 2 lights. From tomorrow, brother, playing basketball. Yep. Don't let the young ones working me over. Yeah, they do. They do. I was never really that great at basketball. It's more just having fun, and sometimes it's fun to surprise a little bit here and there. But yeah, no, I'm not going pro anytime soon, so no one's going to be that shocked when they see me play. So anyway, I think that's all the comments and all the stuff for tonight. Solar array, cool. So I'll call it a night. See you, everyone.